Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I am absolutely thrilled about this segment. So let's just get right to it. Let's bring on an old friend, Americo Casiano, who is a poet. Nice to see you, Americo. We'll
Yeah.
give you the whole 9 yards here. Community activist, member of the Young Lords Party in the late '60s, member of the National Congress for Puerto Rican Rights from '89 through '96, where he organized against police brutality in favor of social and environmental justice. I'm assuming those things are still important to you.
Yes, they are.
Needless
Yes,
to
they
say.
are.
And also joining us is Lillian Jimenez, who is a filmmaker, educator, producer, director, media literacy pioneer, arts administrator, organizational development consultant, et cetera, et cetera. Nice to have both of you with us. I am just thrilled about this. It's a show that's going to take place at Hostos Community College. TT Strikes Back, Evelina's Return. As I mentioned to both of you before this segment, it was an education for me just to study and get ready for this segment. Maybe, Americo, let's start with you. Who was Evelina, and why is it so important that we remember who she is, who she was, and do this play? The play is TT Strikes Back, Evelina's Return. And there we go. Americo, why is
Yeah,
this important?
Miss Antonetti was a parent activist in the late '60s, early '70s. One of the key pioneers for uh, decentralization of schools. She worked very hard in the South Bronx, I believe it's right now referred to District 8. When she was living there, and also in the West Bronx, there's a wonderful picture of her. And she believed strongly in two things: parent being empowered and having the curriculums of the public school system relevant to our communities and relevant as much academically as well as culturally. She's a well-known activist. She helped with the Committee Against the Fort Apache movie, but she was very key in other things. She was very key in bringing federal programs to the catchment area that they serve. I got to know her through the federal summer lunch programs in 71, 72, and 73. I also, as an undergrad student and an activist with the Puerto Rican Student Union and YLP, helped her and the organization work with sort of like taking our youth out of the gang systems and giving them something positive to do. So we were very key in, and she used these phrases in changing the Ghetto Brothers to a community organization, so that
Mhm.
they worked with the youth, especially youth in danger, giving them different type of activities, and
Activities that get
also, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say different activities so that they could get on the right path. I just
Right.
wanted to interject. To me, this sounds like a real American hero. And unfortunately, probably not enough people know about her. I was really not familiar with her work. I mean, I grew up in the '70s in the Bronx. Lillian, talk to me a little bit about why it was so important to you and to others to have this play come back to her home country in the Bronx on 149th Street off the Grand Concourse.
Well, Evelina was very acutely aware of representation, and that's why she fought against that film, Fort Apache, the Bronx, because it was full of stereotypes. So, our dear friend Sandra Nia Rodriguez had written a play about Evelina. She had worked with Evelina. She wrote a play about Evelina, and it was produced a long time ago. Very original, very interactive. And there was a series of events last year, Evelina 100, and Sandra came to New York from Puerto Rico, and she showed an excerpt. She performed an excerpt at Ostos, and those of us in the audience were just absolutely, people who had known Evelina, who had met her, were just absolutely taken. This performer transformed into Evelina, and by the end of the short excerpt, we were just standing up and yelling and thought, oh my God, young
That
people.
is so beautiful. I have to say,
Yeah,
that is just so beautiful.
It was a great experience. And so we thought, oh my gosh, just like you did not know about Evelina,
Mhm.
so many of the young people in the South Bronx who need inspirational leaders, they don't know about her. And so we thought, you know what, we should put this play on. We should do it at Ostos in the South Bronx. She was an advocate for to ensure that Ostos was there.
Right.
That's
CUNY
another reason why it's important that it's taking place there. Absolutely.
Exactly. So she was an incredible advocate for education. And we just thought these young people need to know about this legacy of someone who came from Puerto Rico, came to New York, pulled herself up, and then absolutely was committed to the community in every way possible. It wasn't
Mhm.
just about education. She developed a nutrition program. She started a daycare center. She had one of the first contracts for Head Start, again, in this educational vein. She was just such an incredible figure. And she was really protective and supportive of all of those young radicals
Yep.
like Americo Casiano. And so, we looked up to her. We thought she was just this extraordinary person. One little anecdote I want to say is that whenever she showed up at any event, whether it was a demonstration or she came with food. I mean, she had this cafecito a las 3 o'clock coffee time, which actually the Center for Puerto Rican Studies has now replicated. But she
Wow.
would always show up with food,
So,
and that was so much a part of the Puerto Rican culture.
I said it almost somewhat tongue in cheek when I talked about Americo's credits against police brutality in favor of social and environmental justice. And then I said tongue in cheek, well, not like we don't fight for these things today. The same issues that she fought for are exactly what is front and center in the borough of the Bronx, in the Puerto Rican community, in all our communities today, which is why this is so important. Number one, to know who she was, but realize that it still goes on. So Lillian will give you both a chance to talk about this. Lillian, just talk about what people will see, because this is not exactly a biopic as you we're so used to seeing in on
Right.
streaming right now. There's a biopic of everybody. This
Yeah.
is not a documentary of her, but
Yeah.
it's a look at her return,
It's a look
in
at
quotation marks.
all of the issues that she was involved in. It really gives you a sense of her dynamic personality. And, it's featuring Rockefeller, who's one of the original B-girls from the South Bronx during the whole hip hop phase. And
Mhm.
so, Evelina, it's so original. Evelina has died, and she has been working on behalf of God in, dealing with all these issues. And then a junta is superimposed on her, very much similar to the junta in Puerto Rico now. And so then they start to cut back on her resources. And she has this engagement with God where she's arguing with God, who is a woman. So it's an all woman cast. And Rockefeller, the stagehand, is just looking, and she doesn't have a clue what's going on. So there's an enormous amount of cultural aspects of Puerto Rican
Right.
culture
That,
embedded
that
in.
just that just comes through there. Americo, I want to give you a chance to give your impressions of kind of this fantasy, but a very real fantasy that and why people and Bronx people, especially young people today, would relate to.
Well, she's a person who can fit today's times, yesterday's times, because she
That's my
was
point. Yeah.
on point on key issues that, like as you said, are still with us today. She still believed in good education, in parent empowerment, and student empowerment, um, and she is was on point on as to what should be our line in those topics, and yet it hasn't gone away. We have some of our uh, officials and leaders of today are promoting the same thing. And I mean, she was just a universal person who was on point, and I
This
think that's
dialogue,
important.
this dialogue goes on. I mean, frankly, in all my work on BronxNet, all the time we talk about what our kids doing after school. The segment before you on this program was about the kids in school and having access to technology and all those things. If she's alive today, this is exactly what she'd be fighting for today. I do want to mention, so people say, well, wait a minute, you're talking glowingly about this. So this is happening at the Hostos Center for Arts and Culture at the Repertory Theater, March 19th at 10 and noon, March 20th, 10 and noon, March 21st, 10 and noon. That's for the kids. That's for schools. We want school groups to come by. We want teachers to use it in their classrooms. And then I'm happy to say, because I'm really looking forward to it, an evening performance at 7 o'clock on the 21st for the general audience. Again, we'll go around the room here. Lillian, if you were going to tell, in particular, Puerto Rican people in the Bronx, and obviously there are many of them, of why they need to see it and why they need to learn about it, give me a couple of sentences for that, and then we're going to ask Americo the same question.
I think that, Evelina was somebody who looked at assets in the community. She didn't look at challenges. She looked at assets. And I think that's part of what this play will communicate to people, is that there are enormous assets in our communities, and we just have to see them and work with them. We also have to work with each other in order to change the situation in our communities. And so for young people, there's a host of issues that they can really sink their teeth into, including with their parents. So this is not something where it's dividing the parents from the children and the youth. It's really about all together, people can really make a change. And she did that. She worked with all levels of people, very intergenerationally, and impacted so many people. So it's about, I think, utilizing those values in our community that many of us grew up with, which is about sharing, cooperation, and really dealing with the challenges head on. And that's what young people can do. They have energy, they have smarts.
Tremendous. Thank you. I don't want to run out of time. Americo, we'll give you, 45 seconds to just talk about the same kind of thing. What's your impression?
If you're here now today as a parent or as an adult or a youth trying to address an issue, the first thing you need to know, you're not alone, and it's always been a battle for those things. And one of the leaders
and
was
it's
Evelina.
been done before.
And by seeing Evelina, you will reinforce what you believe and how you feel we need to go forward on the issues.
And if she were here today, she'd be doing the same thing. I mean, it would be the same exact fighting for the kids in schools, fighting for our image, fighting for Puerto Rican independence, and fighting for Puerto Rican identity, which is obviously vital. Before we run out of time, Americo, you had another event that you wanted to mention about. And so if you would be so kind.
Yeah, we're honoring some of the past writers of the Puerto Rican African American community that have gone to the higher levels on the first Sunday of March. We're calling it a griot get together, and those of us who are still with us are going to pick a poet that has passed away and read one of their works, and then we'll come back with one of our works and read to again keep the memory going, and that's very important here in the show because many of those that we're going to honor lived in the Bronx. Miguel Algarin, founder of New York Poets Cafe, was a Bronxite. Luis Reyes Rivera was a
we got to run. So that's coming up. We put the poster up so people can see it. Americo Casiano, it's great to see you again. I'm thrilled we had this dialogue. And Lillian Jimenez, nice to meet you. And identity for Puerto Ricans and all the people of the Bronx who come from all over the world is so vital. And you guys are going to be doing it at Hostos Community College at the Repertory Theater, March 19th, 20th. And 21st. Thank you so much for joining us on the Bronx Buzz.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That will do it. We thank Alex Zimmerman from Chalkbeat. We thank Americo and Lillian. And you know what I always say, if the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, we'll be back next week. Good night.